good afternoon. You guys have made it. Can you believe it's 4:10? It's been a lively day, and I'm so grateful for all of your engagement today and everything from the Legos flying, from the paper folding, to people drawing and work on backlogs and improv. I mean, it was really loaded today. I'm really impressed that you guys kept the pace that you did, so thank you, sir, for your engagement. Who here got at least one new LinkedIn? Good. If your hands are up, hey, there's still time. Okay, who got more than 5? 5. Ooh, look at that. Oh my gosh. Anybody have more than 10? You have more than 10? All right, who has how many did you get? 11. Who's got more than 11? How many did you get? 13. Anybody have more than 13? And no one's confessing. All right, did you get a copy of Steve Denning's book? Okay, I'll get you an autographed copy. Okay, it's all yours. So, you know, every once in a while you fall into an engagement as an Agile coach, and I had the benefit of falling into one of these engagements. Jeff Sutherland had called and he said, "Hey, Stacy, I got something near your neighborhood. It's a little company called GE Digital. Really want you to come down and take a look, and we're going to do a little assessment. And by the way, I've got this guy. He's a really great guy. You'll like him. His name's Nigel, and you should just stop by and help us out." So I drive down, and I was in this. Imagine the time. This is after the article came out about GE Digital and how wonderful they were. And I was in this age of disillusionment that it was like, wow, it's fantastic. So I drive in there only to find out they had some, a few bumps that they were coming across. But along that time, I had the opportunity to meet Nigel, and I remember distinctly, he gave me a set of symbols. He says, remember these symbols, because you're going to use them, and you can use them to map out all these great things, which he currently uses in his training and his coaching. I still have them on my desk, by the way. And from there started a great relationship. That was years ago, and I've been very fortunate to carry on my relationship with Nigel and learning from the things that he's been doing. He spent a lot of time coaching and training with Jeff Sutherland, and Toyota is just in a great position to have someone of Nigel's caliber. I have to share with you, if you guys are looking for a job, you ought to have a talk with the Toyota folks. I'm just not saying that. But, and this is a little plug for you, Nigel. During training, the doors fly open. This is like yesterday. Doors fly open, and then all of a sudden, his whole team shows up with cakes. And they show up, and they're like, we're here to celebrate Nigel's first year anniversary with Toyota. And it was a really special opportunity for them to show their appreciation for their boss. So for that, I mean, if you could be that kind of boss where your team finds you, interrupts your training just to say thank you, that's very impressive. So with that, Nigel Thurlow, thank you for coming here to speak.
Thanks, Stacy. Thanks, man. So I'm going to try and be able to see you. So you're either staying for the free beer, or whatever comes after this. All the other sessions are finished. So I'm going to try. I'll try not to keep you too long, but I've got a sort of a message and a little journey I want to share with you and talk to you about a few things. Let's just see if this remote control is working. There we go. So a little bit about me. Stacey gave me a good intro. I'm a Brit. I've been in the States for about 8 years now. My wife's American, so I became a US citizen a couple of years ago, so this is my home now. I used to work for Toyota a few years ago, and then I sort of went off roaming the world. I was very lucky that Toyota taught me a lot of the things I know. And then I was very lucky to meet some guys who came up with something called Scrum, and as Stacey said, I was able to spend some time with Jeff and learned a lot from Jeff, learned a lot from Ken as well, and from his organization. And for my sins, I'm a big Doctor Who fan, hence the pictures on the screen, yeah? I actually do have a real Dalek. That is my Dalek, and that is Peter Davison, the 5th Doctor, who signed it for me. And if anybody's from Texas and knows where Salina is, that phone box, that British phone box, is actually standing in Salina, and it works. It's fully wired. And it's part of a geocache thing if you're into geocaching. But the most important people, and you've met a lot of them today, are my team. There's a bunch of them in the room. I can't see them because of these lights, but they're down the back and see hands waving. But this is not all of my team. This is a group of them that managed to get a photo a couple of weeks ago, but a lot of what I talked about today is building great teams, and I do have some fantastic people in my team, and I've been very lucky to have those come to join Toyota, and with these people we're doing some pretty cool things at Toyota. I want to give you a bit of history though, just a bit of fun, take you through a little bit of a journey. Toyota, this is Sakichi Toyoda, the founder of the organization, and in 1907 he formed what was called the Toyota Loom Works. They were building weaving looms. In 1924 he built this loom, which was the world's first fully automated loom, and it was because of that loom it enabled his son Kichiro Toyoda to start the Toyota Motor Corporation, and he sold that to a British firm for what was about $300,000 back in 1929. So which brings me to this word lean, because people talk about lean product development and people talk about Toyota and lean, and I don't know if everybody knows where the word lean comes from, what it actually means. So Jim Womack and Dan Jones, MIT professors back in the day, were writing this book, The Machine That Changed the World, and they were doing a public presentation about this book, and they wanted to come up with a word that embodied or embraced what they'd seen at Toyota in their management system. And so this is the guy that gave the world the word lean. This is John Krafkick. He's the chief exec of Waymo now, which is Google's autonomous driving division, and this is where the word lean actually came from. And lean is actually the word for Toyota's production system. So when people talk about lean product development or implementing lean, what they should be talking about is implementing Toyota production system. There are two key pillars of the Toyota production system. Probably the graphics aren't so clear on the screen, but we've got two pillars. One is all about quality, called Jidoka. One is all about elimination of waste. Unfortunately, a lot of people focus on that right-hand pillar and forget about the left-hand pillar. But the left-hand pillar is all about customer first, all about delivering the best possible value for the customer. And the customer first sort of phrase came up in 1946 by the first president of Toyota Motor Sales in Japan, Kamiya-san. And the customer first promise, which we all aspire to now, is the highest quality at the lowest cost in the shortest lead time. So I would postulate that Agile means customer first, delivering the highest value in the shortest lead time with the highest quality for the customer. This picture, I'm going to point at a point, but in the center of this picture is the current president of the company, Akio Toyoda, Toyoda-san. And he tried to teach this in Japan some years ago before he was the president of the company, and they were trying to implement some of the values of Toyota, and especially the customer first value. So he would go out in 6 o'clock in the morning with a team of people to dealerships, car dealerships in Japan, and clear snow from the dealership forecourts and prepare the dealerships for their own customers coming in. And he did this to demonstrate that we as a company needed to treat our customers, the dealerships, with deep respect and deliver great value for them. And we wanted to instill in them that sort of customer first approach. This is my boss. This is the Chief Operating Officer of Toyota Connected. This is Nakashima-san. Every day, if this thing works for me, there we go. Every day, he, as the Chief Operating Officer of our company, cleans our main meeting room, our main boardroom, at least once a day in our offices, because he believes that's where the most important customers come. But I asked him about something else that one of my team told me, and actually every day at 3:30 he cleans the customers' toilets, the bathrooms. That's inspired customer first leadership. That's what we really truly mean by customer first. So let's look at how we link lean to our world now. Back in the 1950s, Taiichi Ono-san created what we now call the Toyota production system, or referred to as lean in the West. Some years later, inspired by this, Jeff and Ken, and then the guys who came up with extreme programming, Ron Jeffries, Kent Beck and others, they were inspired by this, and of course they got together and came up with the Agile Manifesto in 2001. And a lot of people often think Agile came before Scrum and XP, but Scrum and XP were the founders of the Agile movement in that time. And of course, a lot of this was inspired by the stuff we do within Toyota. And in fact, Ken gave me a quote recently. He said that Scrum had two influences, Toyota and DuPont. Toyota for the Toyota production system, and DuPont for the empirical planning process. And here's a spoiler for you, Scrum is a planning tool, not a delivery tool. It's a planning cadence, not a delivery cadence. I'll let you noodle on that one. So I went back and studied this a little bit. I thought, well, this whole empirical process that I learned from Jeff and Ken's teaching and from a lot of the other people in the Agile movement, I thought, where did all this start? So I went back and I found it started with Galileo, and I started to think about the birth of modern science. And then I discovered this British guy, and of course it was a British guy in 1620, came up with a modern scientific process, which was then studied later by people like Stewart and Deming, Deming being the father of all modern quality. And that work formed what Deming called PDSA, Plan, Do, Study, Act at the time. Ishikawa-san, a Toyota person, took that work and created what we call in Toyota PDCA. So this PDCA, this short iterative cycle of planning, doing, checking and acting, became the foundational cornerstone of how Toyota does a lot of its work. And so then when I started to learn Scrum, I thought, this is interesting. I've got this standardized repeatable process called PDCA, and I'm learning this other standardized repeatable process called Scrum, where I do some planning and I do some doing, and then I do some checking and I do some acting. So I thought this was interesting. And so then I started to realize that what Scrum did for me was to codify PDCA. It was to give me time boxes that told me how long I should spend on planning and doing, checking and acting. So for me, translating Scrum into Toyota was really, really easy. And this is part of what I've been able to do with Toyota by showing Toyota that we actually know how to do this. We're just now adapting some codification of what we already know. And then I sort of went back, looked at an article Craig Larman wrote. I know Craig reasonably well, and I looked at some history. And actually the first ever paper about agile delivery in a software environment or in a technical environment was written in 1957. So this stuff isn't new news. This stuff's been around for a while. Okay, so why Toyota Connected? A little bit of history. So let's talk about Toyota Connected, but I thought what I'd do is I'd show you a short film. I'm going to put a little bit of video into this. I'll show you a short film to tell you a little bit about Toyota Connected, and then I'll tell you why we started Toyota Connected.
Most research firms are predicting somewhere between 25 to 30 billion devices will be connected to the internet by the year 2020. What's unique here at Toyota Connected is that we're the only automotive company focused on building the platform to be able to leverage this data.
Akio Toyoda had a vision for connectivity and vehicles communicating and making society better way back in the mid-90s.
He had the foresight to think about that data is the most important asset that any company has.
What makes the data that we're collecting so special as opposed to Facebook or Google or some of these other companies is that we have a lot of context behind the data we're collecting.
The best example of that is probably our new Camry. We're getting data from it every second. And within that second, we're getting every millisecond of data. We know how fast that vehicle was going, how many seatbelts were buckled, what lane it was in. We also can use that data to understand if there's a hazard on the road and be able to warn the drivers behind them. This is just the beginning of what we can do with this data.
Now, every new vehicle launch, those vehicles will be connected. So that means every year, 10 million plus vehicles will be connected to our platform. And so you can imagine the amount of data that we're collecting. You know, by 2020, we'll have more data than Facebook has.
We're going to start providing contextual services to the consumers, where an agent can provide information to you, help manage your route, help manage your day, help manage your calendar, even communicate outside of the vehicle to other people on your behalf. It's going to really revolutionize how we operate our cars.
We're blending and taking all of these disparate assets from your remotely connected vehicle to your handheld device, to your online experience, and turning into one digital transformational experience that will follow you from vehicle to vehicle.
We're not an R&D company. We haven't been set up to go and investigate technologies. We've been set up to build technologies.
We started off Toyota Connected by first partnering with Microsoft. That has allowed us to reach into their advanced products and their data scientists. It also allowed us to quickly scale because all of the tools that we're building here, we're building out on the cloud.
We were set up just over a year ago, and already 2 of our products are in the market. We have a big data center which is already live. We have our car sharing platform, which is live with Servco, one of our distributors in Hawaii. We were able to build the car sharing platform that could allow us not only to provide a service, but also build the technology to enter those vehicles with your smartphone, start and stop the car, and we built all that technology within a few months.
Dealers have hundreds, if not millions of dollars worth of inventory. They can take some of that inventory and deploy it within their primary market area to provide car sharing services. The dealership is getting use and revenue out of their asset, and Toyota Connected, as a provider of that platform that enables it, will get license fees.
There's tremendous opportunity for revenue streams. We're getting requests from industries around the world that want to be able to leverage our platforms. The whole insurance industry is being disrupted by what we're doing here, all wanting to connect and pay to understand how that particular driver was driving.
We can deploy that platform in a matter of a few weeks.
We're also partnering with rental car companies like Avis and Hertz and Enterprise. We're putting those programs in place where we're going to capture data from their vehicles and help them improve their businesses. And there's an opportunity for us to share in some of the revenue that they're going to get from that.
We're working with other companies like Amazon. What they want to do is be able to deliver packages to people's cars. The same technology we're using for car sharing, which enables customers to get into a car, we can repurpose that same technology to do package delivery.
We can let Amazon know where you parked and give them a one-time trunk release and then notify you once the package has been put in the vehicle.
And Amazon are willing to invest, they're willing to pay for that type of technology, and they want to get that out as quick as they can in the market.
Taxi fleets in Japan, we're scoring and understanding how those vehicles are being used. We're providing that level of data through the connected vehicle.
Cities want to improve traffic conditions, and one of the easiest ways to do that is by connecting to intelligent traffic lights. We're able to provide a lot of that data for them through our connected vehicles, and they're willing to pay for that.
When we have autonomous vehicles out in the world, fleet management is going to be key. And one of the platforms that we're building today is a fleet management platform. And the types of revenue that can come when you can manage an autonomous fleet are endless.
Providing autonomous technology is huge, but autonomy on its own will not satisfy what the customer needs. All of the aspects around autonomy is what Toyota Connected brings. So we know when a customer needs a vehicle. We will know what type of vehicle he needs. We know where the customer is going. All of the services in the vehicle, whether it's music, video, all of those services we will provide.
We're moving the industry to a place where it's about services. And the vehicle itself will deliver those services. And we want to get to a point where the car is utilized more than just 10% going back and forth to work. Maybe we can get utilization up to 80, 90, 95%, where the car is actively out doing things, maybe not while you're doing it, but with autonomous technology, running errands or picking up people who can't drive for themselves.
None of our competitors have built a company that's specifically around vehicle data and unleashing the power of that. And while you see a lot of M&A work, it's going to be very difficult to take these different assets and try to make them into one experience. The data is not going to flow from point A to point B, from system to system. What we've built here at Toyota Connected is the differentiator. We created this as a standalone company so we can go at the speed of a startup, but have the strength of Toyota behind us. Our revenues will soon exceed $100 million a year within the next few years. And that's just the beginning.
We're disrupting our own mother company internally.
I think it's important for Toyota to innovate outside of its core experience because the industry is changing. And to truly deliver on the vision of a mobility company, it requires us to expand our experience and our knowledge and our expertise outside of just manufacturing and servicing vehicles. And that's what Toyota Connected's here to do.
So that video was made about a year ago, but I wanted to show you that because I wanted to give you a little bit of insight into what TC does. I'm going to dig a bit deeper. I'm going to tell you how we're disrupting our mother company, how we're leading the charge in this agile journey and the sort of things we're doing and some of the research we're doing and where we think this is heading. And I'll talk a little bit about what Stacey mentioned, Scrum the Toyota way. But we've come to the realization that TPS or lean is not enough. It's not enough on its own. We are the gold standard at in lean manufacturing. And as our president of the company said a few months ago at CES in Las Vegas, He's transitioning this company away from just being a plain old automotive company to being a mobility company. And there's a lot of things you'll start to read in the media about the cool things we're doing in mobility. But we're not losing our roots, we're not losing our DNA. We are very much connected to the past, we're very much connected to the company where we started from. And we are still Toyota, and actually in our offices, this facsimile of the weaving loom is there in the office to remind us we're connected back to that early history. But we are very, very different. We do have beer in the fridge. There's actually nothing against drinking beer, apparently, in a company if you write the HR policies the right way. And this is our head of HR, our chief people officer. This is Jennifer, and she's serving cocktails on a Thursday in our offices. We have parties every Thursday, and I'm apparently waving a bottle of tequila around. Move off that screen quickly. But we must change. We are being disrupted as an industry. We obviously know about Tesla. We've been disrupted by many other companies. And one of our executives coined this statement recently: we need to become more like IT companies before IT companies become more like us. So we're realizing as a global manufacturer, and when we looked at the consumer reports, or I did in the last few days, we're number one. Lexus and Toyota look number one, best quality vehicles on the planet consistently. However, when we look down at our major competitors who are disrupting us, Tesla's down there with lower end of the quality, not doing so well, but they are disrupting our marketplace. So is quality enough? Do we need more than just quality? And then I looked at some other information that came out, and bless Elon, we love him to bits. I had my deposit down for a Tesla. And we look at the Model 3. The Model 3 is outselling some of these top marques, BMW, Mercedes, Audi, and Lexus. And in September, the Model 3 outsold the Corolla in volume sales in the USA. That's a $55,000 car outselling a $20,000 car. So there's something happening. So there is a sense of urgency. And the president of the company and the chairman of Toyota Connected, Tomiyama-san, Toyota-san he singled out tech companies as our new rivals with speed many times greater than our own. And he actually said a life or death battle has begun in a world of unknowns. That's strong language. Tomiyama-san says we're not giving up our main business, but we can't vaguely just continue to make cars for everyone to share this sense of crisis. It's still a challenge, bless you. So let's talk about what we do. We do telematics data. We talked a little bit about telematics. You saw some of that in the video. We do truly big data. Our vehicles are able to get 500 data points plus every 200 milliseconds. So we're capturing this in real time. A lot of cloud technologies there. 7.2 million data points per day per vehicle. And one of the videos that one of my colleagues was in, you saw, we think in 5 years we'll have more data than Facebook, which is quite a colossal amount of data. The other thing we're studying and working in a lot is complex adaptive systems. We heard from Steve about complexity, and we are focused a lot in this thing called the Cynefin framework about complex systems, complexity theory, and this leads us into what we're doing in artificial intelligence.
Starting this year, Toyota and Lexus luxury models will come with Amazon Alexa.
Alexa, turn on the AC.
Turning on AC.
Finally, a virtual assistant to help you navigate.
Alexa, where's the nearest gas station?
Nearest gas station in 1.5 miles.
And to help maintain your vehicle.
Alexa, order more brake pads.
Ordering new brake pads. Although maybe if you didn't stop so close to the car in front of you.
I left plenty of room.
You drive too aggressively.
If you were just quiet for 2 seconds, 2 seconds.
She'll talk to you literally the entire time you're driving.
I think you should have turned back there.
I know where I'm going!
Hi, you know why I pulled you over?
No, officer, I have...
Because we were driving 72 miles per hour in a 45-mile-per-hour zone.
Anything else I should know?
2 miles back, we rolled through a stop sign without coming to a complete stop. Also, there are illegal fireworks in the trunk.
Sir, I'm gonna need you to step out of the car, please.
Amazon Alexa. You'll never get away from it.
I'd really like to say we made that video, but the Ellen DeGeneres made that video, and I just thought it was so good I just took it off YouTube and thought we'll use it. I did credit her, of course. But Amazon Alexa's live in some of our vehicles now. Google Home is in progress at the moment, and certain other sort of voice technologies. So we're working definitely in the AI space and the sort of machine learning space. You heard in the video about insurance scoring. This is a real thing now. Insurance companies are going to start offering you better insurance rates and attractive insurance rates if you're prepared to share your driver data with them. It's an opt-in process, folks. It's opt-in, not opt-out. If you've got progressive insurance, you already do that with a little dongle they give you anyway. So, but this is the future. Okay. Something else that's the future. Let's talk about ride sharing. A little video.
Introducing the Hui app, a station-based car share service by Servco Pacific and Toyota Connected. Through the new free mobile app, cars can be booked anytime from any place. Simply open the app and select your preferred date and time of reservation, which can be booked for as little as an hour and up to 2 weeks. Select the most convenient station location from the interactive map to view prices and available cars. Choose the one that best suits you and click Reserve. The total cost of your reservation includes gas, insurance, and taxes. Once your reservation is active, you're ready to roll. You can now pair your phone with your reserved Hui car, and your phone becomes a digital key, allowing you to lock and unlock the doors, and use the push to start button to begin your adventure. Make as many stops as you prefer along the way, and at the end of your reservation, simply return the car to its original station. Lock the doors and end your reservation through the Hui app. You will receive a notification that your bill is finalized. So whether it's a morning surf session, a Costco run, or an extended stay on the island, Hui provides a fleet of vehicles at your fingertips, equipped to meet your needs. For more information about Hui, visit drivehui.com.
So I know some of you have been meeting some of the agile doctors out there, some of the awesome team from my sort of practice there at Toyota Connected, and actually some of the people who are involved in delivering that application as well as the Alexa integration. You've been meeting them today. But ride sharing is a real thing. Toyota's invested nearly $2 billion this year already in ride sharing. We took $500 million stake in Uber, $1 billion stake in Indonesia in the largest ride-sharing system out there called Grab, and we're investing in Japan Taxi as well. So ride-sharing is another big change that's coming along, and so we're having to adapt as a company. This is where the agility comes into an organization, to be able to turn a gigantic global corporation to respond rapidly to changing customer demand and changing the focus to what the customers want. That's agility. Oh, look at this. What does agility mean? So this is our little summary of this. It's not exhaustive, but we want to deliver faster with higher quality and lower cost. They are the three principles of the customer first promise. And then we'd like to reduce complexity. We want to understand complex systems and be able to reduce complexity, make faster and better decisions, and of course potentially stay ahead of the competition. These are things that you might desire at any organization with agility. And our customer first promise, as I mentioned earlier, look, highest quality, lowest cost, shortest lead time. The key cornerstone that underpins the whole of Toyota's production system since 1946. This is what, to me, agility is all about. The people who we're agilists, so of course we know it's not just for software, right? It's all about responding to changeover, following a plan. And I started using this slide for some business people, and I said, what if we don't change at all and something magical just happens? Unicorns jump over rainbows. So what agility really means is delivering the right product at the right time for the right customer. And I've been explaining Lean. This is a great book I recommend you read, but the creator of TPS said all we're trying to do is look at the timeline from the moment the customer gives us the order to the point where we collect the cash. So this is about optimizing the lean flow efficiency. So Lean is all about getting to the products and service to your customer as fast as possible with the highest quality. The problem is a lot of organizations, when they engage in some sort of lean or agile transformation, they start to optimize their human resource structure. They go up that resource efficiency axis rather than going across the x-axis, which is to optimize flow. And we get all this new optimizing our organization, but we do nothing to optimize the flow within the products to the customer. So I started using this diagram, and it seems to be resonating with people. It's not meant to be a Venn diagram, it just looks like one. But so if we talk about TPS and Lean, we talk about building the product right. highest quality, lowest cost, shortest lead time. So we've been doing this for years. We build the best products in the world within our market segment. And Agile is about building the right product. This is about, let's build this out a little bit. Scrum gives us our empirical plan. It's taught us how to plan empirically and make evidence-based decisions. And we've got our customer feedback loop. So we can say that we can be lean without being agile, and you can be agile without being lean. But ideally, we'd like to be lean and agile. We want to be building the right product and building the product right, because these two things are complementary. They are not opposing forces. You can do them independently, but I'd suggest that doing both of them might be the right thing to do. So, a little bit of a case study for you. I'm going to show you another short film, but give you a bit of a case study. So we've been doing Scrum, and we're doing Scrum in hardware, and I'll show you that in a moment. But this is some of the data that one of my colleagues was working on, and we were looking at some industry metrics about quality versus design. So when we look at the right-hand column of this graph, you can see Toyota's in the top 1% of companies in less defects, less malfunctions, best quality. But when you look on the left-hand side, which is design, you can see we're falling behind many other competitors within design. We aren't designing the coolest, sexiest products that the customers want. We're building the best quality, but they're not necessarily getting the best design features. This is consistent. If we look at the data over time, we can find that Toyota's consistently been ahead in quality, but we've been behind in design for some time. So we needed to address this. We needed to start focusing on this, and one of our executive vice presidents, Steve Basra, you're going to see in a moment in this video, will explain how we've been doing things, and then I'll show you some of the results.
We're working in a new way, an agile way, where we bring the voice of the customer into everything we build.
We work in 1 week sprints at a time. Every week we're doing research, design, prototyping, and testing. What that means is we invite customers to our office every week to test our product at very early stages.
And if it doesn't work, we go back, we redesign it, we rebuild it, and we test it. And we go through those iterative cycles, and we make sure that what we are designing is what consumers want.
Expect some radical changes by 2021. Now that we have control of our systems and we get to build what we want, you're going to see cleaner and fresher user interfaces. You're going to see better and easier to use navigation systems. And we're going to have systems that are updatable and expandable.
We're really excited about what this means for dealers because we've put in the effort to make sure that we have an intuitive product for them to sell. We hope it's similar to when you bought your smartphone. No one had to tell you how to use it. You opened it up, you clicked around, and you just got it. That's the same experience that we're going to provide.
I have never had so much executive support in anything that I've worked on than what I am feeling today. And that's a great thing.
The fact that Toyota has empowered us, our team, and has put trust in us. This is not a small investment that's being made to let North America develop these systems. This is a huge investment.
We're taking our destiny into our own hands because this is one of the most important areas of the future. We are building the systems in-house. We are working in a different way. We want to get our dealer feedback. We want to show you what we're building. And our commitment is that we are going to build this amazing experience. It's happening.
So this is where Japan has now allowed America, for the American market, to take over the full design of all our infotainment systems in the range of vehicles that you'll be buying in the next couple of years and onwards. And one of the things we did, you heard Steve talking about 1 week sprints. I'm a big advocate of short sprints. People who know me well know I advocate for this. We have over 200 teams doing 1 week sprints. We have some teams doing 2 week sprints. There's no such thing as a 3 or a 4 week sprint in Toyota that's actually driven by internal Toyota people. So the video that Steve was just talking to you about, they have been working with over 200 real customers just like yourselves, real people who buy and use cars, not all of them Toyota customers. And every week, for a period of about 6 months when this case study was published in July, they were inviting customers to go to different locations all around the US and actually try out our new infotainment systems in real time, give immediate feedback. The teams went back and iterated those repeatedly every single week in 1 week sprints and continued to test with these groups of people. And then they started to measure this using an industry standard called the System Usability Score. A score of 68 is considered average. A score of 80 is considered exceptional. We're scoring 87. That's what 1 week sprints do for you when you're designing hardware and systems for cars. And we're doing that right now. This is actually happening right now. This is cool, cool stuff. But there's a bunch of problems we need to solve, and this is where I started to formulate the sort of Scrum the Toyota way philosophy and start to look at how we could start to solve some of these problems. So let's just look. We're a global company. We've got 81 years of manufacturing cars, over 100 years from when the company was first founded. We've got very different traditions and cultures, and that does make a difference. The way that Japan does things, the way that America does things is very different. So there are some challenges there for us to work through as a global corporation. We have decades of deep hierarchies, like a lot of the companies that a lot of you will be involved in coaching and working in, and that is challenging. And of course, we have extensive silos. They've been built of 80 years of building a global corporation. You will have silos. And maybe a healthy dose of politics here and there, yeah. It's a thing. But I went back to basics. I started looking at this. I started thinking, well, we need a scaling framework. You know, I've been working with Jeff, and he's done some scaling stuff, and I have as well. And I started, well, what is a framework? And I thought, well, let's go back to the dictionary. A framework's a basic structure that underlies a system onto which other things can be built. So Scrum is a framework, because Scrum will apply in any context. My daughter used it to plan her move to Florida. I've used it for house moves. People use it for weddings. We've used it in all sorts of contexts. And then I looked at the other definitions of process and method, and it turns out process and a method is the same thing. It means the same thing, and a methodology is just a series of those things. Then we started looking at behavior patterns. We started looking to sort of think, can we build a pattern library, a pattern language here? And we started seeing that patterns are actually defined as a recurrent way of acting towards a given object or in a given situation. And of course, we know a lot about tools like Kanban because we invented it. And we started to look, so we started to look at these things and thought, okay, we can use a lot of these tools, but a lot of these tools and a lot of these behavior patterns are very context specific, and context is everything. So what works in HR may not work in data science, may not work in research and development, may not work in education. So we started to look at this and think, okay, we need to look at how we're going to scale Scrum. And then we figured out, actually, there's no one size fits all, there's no standard approach. And my opinion is there are no scaling frameworks. There are patterns, techniques, tools, methods, but there are no one size fits all frameworks, and context determines everything. And this is the sort of research and the learning that we're now getting after doing this for a few years. And there's a couple of other areas where we find that agility is limited. If you're working in managed services, outsourced contracts, if you don't control the people doing the work, good luck trying to get them to work in this new agile way. The same as if you're doing fixed bid contracts. And this actually isn't an agile problem. This is a contracting problem. So if you've got these types of scenarios where you've got these black box outsourced deals, either fixed bids or you've got a managed services contracts, this is more a contracting procurement vendor negotiation than actually about being agile, because only these organizations can be agile or work in an agile way with you, but only if the contracts allow them to. Then I've written an article on LinkedIn some time ago, and I'm having a lot of conversation with a lot of people in the industry about the product owner problem. Because our old known stable interface between the business and the development team was this beautiful thing called the business requirements document, which was built by an army of people for many, many months and maintained by the business analysts, you know, the interference layer, and bless them. And then we went and did this. We replaced it with a product owner and went, you're it. So BRD document and army of people, it's all now contained in one person. Good luck with that. So we're finding significant challenges with product ownership. We know that the product owner is one of the key roles, the most important role for us to be successful. So we're trying to solve those problems. And when we go beyond one team, of course, we start to look at some of the patterns from Scrum at scale. We think that Metascrum works. I was involved in using Metascrum and Scrum of Scrums at 3M some years back. But then we start to look at, well, what about when we go beyond one product? We've got now one team with many products and many stakeholders and many customers, and this is a real reality. So we start to use something called the executive Metascrum, and we start to manage the context switching between all these different products. And then we go beyond complicated into this real complex world where we've got multiple products, possibly many stakeholders, multiple teams, and the problem is many of these teams need to collaborate with each other but not on all the products all the time. Oh, and then let's make them all different vendors and see what happens then. So these are some of the real challenges we're trying to solve. These are real things that real companies have to solve, and guess what? There isn't a framework out there that says do this and everything will be fine. So we've got to find techniques for this. So we are starting to identify patterns and create some patterns. One of the patterns we use that came out of Scrum at Scale is the executive action team. And to give you an example, this is the executives at Toyota Connected. The executive action team meets every single week. They have a backlog in Jira, not the biggest fan of tools, but they have a backlog in Jira, and they maintain a backlog of impediments, and the chief exec and all these reports and these executive team work as a Scrum team to solve impediments every week in the organisation. In our sister company down the road, TM&A, they have a similar structure that meets 4 times a week, every day at 4:45, with a backlog pulling impediments. And as we go down lower levels, when we're in a deeper organisation, we'll create leadership action teams where we'll have managers from different departments coming together as a leadership action team with a backlog, solving impediments every day to allow the teams to move forward. So we're retasking that middle management layer to actually be people that create value and remove roadblocks and red tape, bureaucracy to allow us to go faster. This is real. I mean, my boss, we go into his office every week and we do the executive action team meeting, and we really do solve problems. We work in value streams. A value stream really is a Toyota thing. We originally invented the concept of value stream mapping. But essentially, all the tools and people that we need to deliver value to the customer, from taking an order to delivering the value, whatever that product or service is, we're now starting to organise, make sure we organise people into these value streams. I've got a nice graphic on here. So we take a bunch of different teams from different verticals, different business units, and we create a value stream which includes all those different people. So this is one of the patterns we're trying to move much more towards, so that we're actually cutting across different vertical organisations. Copying is something that Capital One did. We're not averse to learning from other companies, and we have a big problem with horizontal shared services. We have 5,000 people, give or take, just in IT in the USA. And we have about 2,000 people delivering shared services, servers and networking and all this sort of stuff. So what we did, we started building cross-functional horizontal teams. We took each of the disciplines, each of these different component teams, and we actually took people from these teams and created a fully multi-skilled cross-functional team with these different disciplines. And then we paired them with the verticals. So now we get a set of vertical people in a value stream paired with a dedicated horizontal cross-functional team. We took some things like 11-week server builds from 11 weeks to 2 days. We took some environment builds from 60 weeks down to 3 weeks. These are some of the good case studies coming out of the work that some of the colleagues are doing down at TM&A. So this is about just changing the way we do things, not changing what we do, changing the way we do things to improve the way we deliver value to our customers. We came up with this concept of a bridge team, and this is just one example from one of our major programs where we have a bunch of agile teams delivering very rapidly in 2-week sprints, shipping to production every 2 weeks, really do to production every 2 weeks. And yep, they're reliant on a number of teams in a more legacy traditional organization. So we created this thing called the bridge pattern, where they created this 2-member team which spent a lot of time understanding with the product owners the priorities that were coming up for the Agile groups, and they were then working to pre-stage information and data and work that was needed by the traditional teams, and we figured out it was a 15-day runway, so they could pre-stage things 3 weeks in advance so we could keep continuous flow going. This is about finding solutions to problems, doing experiments, figuring out how to make these worlds work. This is just one of these patterns that they've come up with in the organisation. Something we were talking about just last week. We started some of our product owners doing a product owner daily scrum, because we figured out we needed the product owners to have better communication, to talk more frequently in a very fast, dynamic, moving, large-scaled program we're working on with many teams, and we wanted to foster product owner communication. So we started to get some big visuals made just in the last few days, and we're starting to have the product owners meet daily to discuss where we are on release plans, where we are in dependency mapping, where we are on our current condition, delivering some key milestones. Because, milestones, release plans and fixed dates are a reality in big companies, and you can work with them in a very agile way. Here's one. This is a great bouncy slide for you. This is the type of thing that a lot of people say, we can't do Scrum, and we can't be agile, we can't create a dedicated team, we don't have enough people. And this is a typical contracting process. This thing will go if I press the button. Here we go. So this is what it sort of looks like when you're trying to get a master services agreement or a statement of work or some contract, yeah? And then maybe, 6 weeks later. And in Toyota, some MSAs can take 9 months. 9 months to do an MSA. In Toyota Connected, we can do an MSA in 2-3 days, depending on how much redlining's there. So this is actually a concept from the lean world. It's not an agile concept. So you create what's known as dynamic cross-functional teams. And this is an example where members from these different departments come together every day, focus for, in this example, 3 hours, between the hours of 1 and 4, and during that time they leave their mobile phones and their email alone. They leave those at the door, and this team is a dynamic cross-functional team that forms each day for a period of 3 hours to actually achieve the work of a dedicated cross-functional team to accelerate the flow of value. And it's a temporary flow cell, and in Lean it's known as a workflow cycle. But this is a technique that we're starting to look at adapting now, where we've got departments like vendor management, procurement, legal, where they can't be dedicated all the time. And that brings me to the final part of this, which I'm going to talk about teams, because multi-team systems is what scaling Scrum, scaling Agile is all about. Having more than one team working together. A friend of mine, Kate, was using this on a t-shirt the other week when I was in Portugal, and I thought, well, how about this as a principle? Teamwork over frameworks. And so we're much more focused on teamwork than frameworks. So focus on patterns of behavior and building high-performing teams. So doing Scrum does not make you a team. Stuffing a bunch of people in a room and going, here, we'll teach you how to do the 3-5-3 of Scrum, now you're a team, doesn't actually make you a team. And I think a few of you may have gone to Andy McKnight's high-performing teams talk a few minutes ago, which would have talked a little bit about this. Task interdependency determines if you need a team. So if you've got 2 or more people that are interdependent on each other, then you have the need for a team. And the definition really is 2 or more people working independently, adaptively, and dynamically towards a shared or value goal. That determines the need for a team. Once you've got the need for a team, we then need to separate the difference between teamwork and task work. Because people are often driven by tasks, and if you're in the world of hell where you're putting all your tasks in Jira and estimating tasks in hours, please stop doing that. Because you're focused on task work and people's hours rather than delivering value and teamwork. But here's the deal. Teams need to learn how to be a team. It's not automatic. And we're finding we need to coach people how to be great teams. Just because they can do great Scrum and they're great technical people, are very competent, capable people, doesn't necessarily make them great teams. And when you scale that and you've got multiple teams, you need to do the same level of coaching. And as one of my friends will tell you, the interactions matter more than the people doing the interacting. So we're doing some research with the University of North Texas. We've partnered with the scientists in their team science department, because we believe we need to try and solve this problem and try and find better ways of scaling large programs and getting teams to function at high performing speeds, but also get multiple teams to interact with each other. And we find that generally 1 to 2, maybe 3 teams works reasonably well, but once we get up to 6, 8, 10 teams, those teams then start to become silos themselves. So we've been doing a bunch of research. We went through and read the literature. We sort of identified new models for multi-team systems, and we've designed some new multi-team system models, and we're actually going to start some research trials with the university studying some of the experiments we're going to play out at Toyota Connected and across the Toyota family. And then next year, next year we are working on some peer-reviewed scholarly white papers with the university. Those papers have been partially written, and then we'll start publishing the results and sharing the results of those studies with the Agile community. We do need to keep the hierarchy. Steve Denning talked all about a network of teams and Crystal's work. We're big fans of that, and also the work of John Cotter in building a network of teams. But we still do need a hierarchy in a large organization, so we need to find the balance between those two sort of opposing type ideas. We're also moving away from just focusing on team level goals, sprint goals at the team level, and moving on to what we call the distal goal or the scaled goal. So if you've got multiple teams working together, what is the goal of all those teams working together every sprint, as opposed to what is the individual goal of each team? What is that integrated goal? And the academics call that the distal goal. It's distant from the teams versus the proximal goal. Nearly done, Stacey, don't worry. We're also looking at evolving the roles of the product owner. We started on the CPO, the Chief Product Owner concept. We also use that. We're looking at this military concept called boundary spanners, where we're looking at the product owner becoming more of a facilitator across multiple boundaries across different organizational units. This is what this boundary spanner thing means. We're looking at Scrum Masters becoming more like Teams Masters, coaching teamwork. As we evolve the product owner role and we start to look at how we can focus on these distal goals, we're sort of looking at the chief product owner and product owners becoming a team to facilitate the way we're delivering value, and to actually do much more of the facilitation, not just management of scope, and obviously focused on distal goals and shared leadership. So the CPOs are becoming much more of a facilitator and building a coaching team of product owners, because we need to engage that conversation more. And we also want to foster collective identity across multiple teams rather than individual team identities. We want collective identities, and we want to foster a sense of belonging in these teams. Helping us on this journey, we've defined some behavioral markers, and we've started and we implemented this recently. This is self-guided correction. This is self-assessment and self-correction. We don't believe in subjective assessment of people. The circles and triangles and crosses are a Japanese symbology that's used extensively in Toyota. That's what Stacey was referring to earlier. But we've now implemented this where teams can now self-assess their current condition. Every retrospective, they review this, and then they work on implementing the corrective measures themselves to improve. They measure themselves and they measure their own improvements. And this is all very transparent in the office. And this is actually starting to see, you can see this is real data, you're starting to see some significant improvements in the teams that are doing this. And we're also doing this at the meta level, the higher level across a large program. A couple of those teams have only just started, so don't judge them too harshly with the X's there. I'll leave you with a couple of little things and I'll wrap up. Genru Canary. This is something called source control. I talked about complexity theory. And if you study complexity, if you're trying to solve the problems by the time we've run into chaos, you're going to have nothing but pain and suffering. And even in the complex domain, when you're trying to solve problems that have become very complex, it can be very troublesome. So Toyota's always had this policy. This is not root cause analysis. This is source control. This is going to the source of the problem and fixing the problem where it actually starts at the source. And to give you an example, if we're working with a vendor or a manufacturer and they're delivering products to us and there may be a problem with that product, we don't just push it back to the vendor. We'll go to their supplier or the delivery of the raw materials, and we'll solve that problem at the source. So this is source control, something called Genru Canry, and I'd recommend you make a note and do a little bit of research on this and start learning a little bit about complexity theory and a little bit about controlling complexity at the source. I've been starting to teach this. This is these fancy words, Toyota Ajuru Gujitsu, means the agile craft of Toyota. I'm starting to bring together the Toyota world, the TPS world, the lean world, and the agile world, and we did create something called Scrum the Toyota Way. These are the 3 classes that have been taking part so far. One of them is just the other day, and we've literally finished it yesterday. These are proving highly successful. And as a result of this, we're actually going to start regularly offering these courses next year. To begin with, in the Dallas area, we've been doing some stuff with Stacy. We've got one going off in San Francisco in a couple of weeks' time, which we've been asked to do. And then from next year, we're going to start offering the classes to teach the deep Toyota learning, these patterns we're learning, the techniques we're learning. And as you'll see, we've been sharing this with the Navy, who are helping us, and then we did some work recently with the Dallas Police Department. So we're starting to involve people who are experts in teaming to help us learn from them as well. A couple of case studies, and now I promise you, Stacey, I will stop. Then we'll get beer. We're on time. This is just to give you some example, this was a heating ventilation company, commercial HVAC company, that came to me about 18 months ago and asked me to teach them what we were doing at Toyota, and then they went back and implemented it. They make no software. They make commercial heating and ventilation equipment, and they're now using the techniques we taught them from Scrum, the Toyota Way. And you can see the statement that the chairman wrote on the slide. And just for a bit of fun, this is from Major Max Garon. He's a very well decorated officer in Dallas Police Department. If you Google him, he's extremely well known. He was trained by me. He got me to go to the Chief of Police and to her command staff, Chief Hall. We did some work with Dallas Police Department, which was great fun for me. I was given the honour to speak at a graduation ceremony as well for new cadets, which was a fantastic honour for somebody like me. And they implemented Kanban and some of the Scrum techniques in the narcotics division of the Dallas Police Department. So your Dallas Police Department are now using some of the techniques we taught them in the narcotics division. And so I think that's a cool case study. I'm going to wrap up with one last video, a couple of minutes, just to give you a little flavour of where we're heading, and then I'll hand back to Stacey.
The thing that really drew me to Toyota Connected was the ability to bring cutting-edge design and technology to a large market. We have a really unique design opportunity to interact with all kinds of people in all kinds of emotional states and have real impact on things that actually matter to them in their lives.
So we at Toyota Connected, we really want to free ourselves from the tyranny of technology through removing the complexity for the end users, for the customers, for the people who drive our vehicles and own our vehicles. We want to remove the technological complexity to enjoying that experience. And over the next few years, the technological capabilities of our vehicles and our mobility solutions are going to increase significantly.
So Toyota Connected's mission is really to provide the software tools built on top of data for making our customers' lives better. Toyota as a car maker, Toyota makes great cars. What we think here at Toyota Connected is that we should make great software that goes with their cars.
We do take a lot of pride in what we do, because everybody is super enthusiastic and everybody tries to bring their best to the table. We're always brainstorming about great ideas and how it can change customers' lives.
We want to bring that connected experience that people are having into the vehicle. So we're bringing that information in and allowing our users to access it in a very natural way, improving the experience, improving the safety. At the end of the day, when you're coming in to work every day and the mission is to improve a customer's life and save lives through the improvement of our in-vehicle technology, that's a mission that we can all stand behind.
It's really one of the coolest things to be able to build the software related to the hardware that I'm driving around every day. Building the connected car platform for Toyota has really been able to connect that passion with the ability to have real impact in the world.
You know, when I was growing up, my stepdad was a civil engineer. He could always point to a bridge and said,
I had the ability and influence to help build something that really meant something to somebody. When I think about my work here at Toyota Connected and I think about my children that are riding in my Toyota, I'm able to point to them and say, you know, we are really driving some significant impact with the rest of the culture and the rest of the world. What we're doing is at the forefront. It's the bleeding edge of where we're going in the world today and how the future of automotive will be considered. We're laying that foundation.
So I'll wrap up with one final slide from the original founder of the company. Before you say you can't do something, try it. Thank you. Yeah.